Alright guys, tonight we're going to be learning about something called the coordinate plane. And you'll notice that here I have this grid. Probably most of you have seen them before. A couple things just to point out and remember. The up and down axis here, that's called the y-axis. And then the horizontal axis, that's called the x-axis. Those are really important. And they're always alphabetical. So x comes before y in the alphabet. X goes always on the horizontal, and then the other one, the up and down one, would be the second in the alphabet, so Y. I could call them A, B, so X would be the A axis, and then the up and down Y would be the B axis. Okay, so you have some things to fill out on your note sheet, and the first one that I've underlined here in red, -2, 1, is called an ordered pair for point A. So ordered pair is your first blank. It's called an ordered pair because the order is very important. The first number, so I'm going to fill in a blank with first, in the ordered pair -2, 1, falls on the x-axis. And 1, the second number in the ordered pair, falls on the y-axis. So if I go back and kind of point this out on my ordered pair for you, the x is always the first number and the y is always the second number. This order, I'm down here on the second part here, the order applies to all points in the coordinate plane, and the first number in an ordered pair, which I already labeled for you, is called the x-coordinate, and the second number is called the y-coordinate. The point 0, 0, where the x and y axis intersect or cross, is called the origin. So this center spot right in the middle here, that would be called the origin. Alright, now we're going to use kind of that information at the top and we're going to fill in the blanks below. So the horizontal axis, horizontal is the horizon, it goes across, is called the x-axis. The vertical axis, vertical goes up and down, is called the y-axis. And the point 0, 0, the middle point, is called the origin. A point, or any point, such as -4, 1, is called an ordered pair. And you can actually split that up between the two lines. The first number in an ordered pair always is associated with the x-axis, and it is called the x-coordinate. The second number in an ordered pair, it doesn't necessarily fall exactly on, but it's associated with the y-axis. And the second number in an ordered pair is called the y-coordinate. The x and y axis intersect at 90-degree angles. So if you remember back to junior high, you talked about angles, and if it forms a 90-degree, a right angle, so that's actually a 90-degree angle. And this means that they are perpendicular. We haven't talked about that a lot. Perpendicular. Okay, ran out of space. So perpendicular. We haven't talked about that a lot, but we will when we get into graphing lines and especially graphing systems, which will be as we get closer to Christmas time. Okay, now for the next section, you guys are going to fill out the bottom and you're going to actually put in those letters. And I'm just going to show you using the graph how we got those. So at the top, they already talked about point A is at -2, and then the y number is 1. So the ordered pair for A would be -2, 1. Now we're going to look at B. So if you find B over here, it's actually in what's called quadrant 4. And so to get the directions to get to point B are going to be to go over on the x-axis. So here I am, I'm going over. And see how at 4 I'm right above the B? So the x value for b is 4, and the y value, if I follow it across, and you have lines to follow, will be -3. So b is at the point 4, -3. If we look at c, c is right here. So on the x-axis, I have to go over 2 spots. And then do I have to go up or down to get to c? I don't, so that's going to be a 0. So the answer is 2, 0 for C. Point D is over here in the third quadrant, so I'm going to go left to -2, and then I'm going to look across, and I'm at -3. So D is at -2, -3. And we always put ordered pairs in parentheses to keep them together. Point E, let's see, here it is in the first quadrant. I'm going to go over 4, and then I'm going to go up to 2. So E is at 4, comma, 2. That's a comma. Point F is over to -3, so -3, and down to -1, so -3, -1. Point G, notice I don't have to go over. Oh, I do have to go over, my fault. I'm going to go over 1, and then I'm going to go up 4. So G is at over 1, up 4. H, if I go over 3, I'm going to have to go down to -1. So over 3 and down to -1. Letter I, I'm going to go over 1 and down to -2. So this will be 1, -2. Letter J, getting a little bit crowded, so I'm going to erase just a little bit here. So to get to letter, what am I on? J, I'm going to go over 2, and then I'm going to go down, and I see that I'm at -4. So J is at 2, -4. And then point K, notice on this one I don't have to go over at all. So my over is 0, and my up is here on 3. So 0, 3 is the point for K. Okay, and now for the last part, just to answer the last 4 questions here. The area between the positive part of the x-axis and the positive part of the y-axis, so I'm going to draw that right here. So x is positive right here, and y is positive right here. That is called the first quadrant. So that is the first quadrant, and it's actually written in a Roman numeral, so it's the letter I. Then the area between the positive y-axis and the negative x-axis is the second quadrant. So we use the Roman numeral 2 and then the word quadrant. And then the area between the negative x and the negative y is called the third quadrant. So we use 3 i's pushed together. So that is the third quadrant. And then the last area, which is between the negative y and the positive x, so negative y, positive x, that is the fourth quadrant, and we represent that with an I and then a V. So the fourth quadrant. All right, now what I'd like you to do after this is all filled out is flip your paper over, and I want you to try all of the questions on the back. If there's something that you're still having trouble with, want to ask me a question about, you might want to circle it or put a star beside it. What I want everyone to do is at the bottom on the back, tell me one thing that you learned or were reminded of, and then ask me one good question about how we're going to use this, or a clarification. I'm not sure about this kind of situation. So one thing that you learned or were reminded of, and then one thing that you have a question about.